Welcome to another episode of Intentwise Connect podcast, where we talk about all things Amazon, Walmart, and e-commerce. Our goal really is to bring to you educational, informative, and thought-provoking content. And my guest today is Manu Sareen. He is the co-founder and CEO of I2O Retail. We'll learn all about Manu and his company in a moment. Today's topic is brand protection. It's a topic that I'm keenly interested in learning more about. Manu, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you, Srinath, for the invitation.
And how's Seattle? I've been there twice this year, and I feel like I carry the weather from San Diego over to Seattle, bright and sunny. So,
Seattle is perfect in the summer. So this is the best time to be in Seattle, and from till September end or sometime in October, it's going to be sunny and nice. So I just want to enjoy the summer in Seattle.
Yeah. So let's dive in. Manu, why don't you take a moment, give us a little bit about your background and the company you've been working on.
Trying to break it down into 3 chapters of my life. The first chapter was all about brick and mortar retailing. I spent a long time at Best Buy going through different functions. Started from ground up, learned the nuts and bolts of retail, how the brick and mortar side works, and learned a lot in my time in Minneapolis. And I heard that you were also in Minneapolis at that time. So again, great city, a little cold, but other than that, a massive hub for retailing and people that want to learn about retail. The second part of my life was more around learning and understanding more of the omni-channel, how the brick and mortar and the online piece work together, whether it's pricing policies, assortment, promotions. Do you want to keep it same in both parts of the organization? How do they, even within the Best Buy sphere, I learned a lot about the omni-channel space and how do you run an omni-channel business more effectively. I then joined Amazon, which is pure play online, and spent a lot of time building out their private label businesses, both on the hard lines and the consumable side. And again, a completely different journey, completely different set of tools and thought processes. And the third part of my journey was building SaaS analytics tools that actually help brands maximize their revenue on marketplaces like Amazon and Walmart and websites and other places. So it's been a very interesting part. I feel a little bit more lucky that I've seen pure play brick and mortar, I've seen omni-channel, I've seen pure play online, and now I'm in this exciting tool space where there's a ton of innovation, there's a ton of work going on how to solve these problems and, help these brands grow their businesses on an e-commerce world where it's still smaller than brick and mortar, but it's been growing, progressively, and it is the future of retailing.
Appreciate the background, Manu, and agree. I mean, I think from our perspective too, you're talking about analytics, the likes of Amazon and Walmart share so much data now, and there's also so much data around competitive intelligence. So I think, it's an exciting time and would love to dig into some of the specific areas you're working on. Today's topic is brand protection. Let's begin by defining what that means. What does brand protection really mean? Can you peel some layers for us and explain exactly what that entails?
That's a great question, because brand protection is a very open-ended and a word that's been thrown out by anyone and everyone. And I'll give you my definition of how I think about brand protection, what it truly means. So let's look at the value chain. On one side is the brand that is actually making the product. It's figuring out, putting all the investment in the brand equity, marketing, as well as the actual product innovation that's happening from the brand side. On the other side is the consumer. That's the consumer is the one that's actually consuming the brand, is the one that's going to utilize and get the benefit of what the brand is producing. In the middle, there is this channels of distribution. This how the product will actually reach the consumer. There's marketplaces, there's online websites, there's online retailers, and then there is the brick and mortar retail. We keep the brick and mortar aside because that's a little bit more controlled experience, but let's talk about the rest of the space in the middle. What a brand is looking for is They want to control how, when, how, where all of this product that they're making gets to the consumer in terms of, just simple things like the content, the price, the pack sizes, the what's on the labels of the products, even to the point who is actually going to deliver the product to the consumer. Is it going to be delivered by a retailer? Is it going to be delivered by an authorized seller? Is it going to be delivered by themselves so that it's the best experience and reaches on time and things like that? Any time in between, but in these marketplaces, in these websites, in these online retailing world, any time where the integrity of the experience gets broken, it creates issues for the brand. And to protect that is called brand protection. So it's a very open, it's a very, very big, it's a very dark, it's a massive space where there's a lot of things happening wrong between when the brand is actually making the product to when the consumer is actually getting the product. And the brand wants to make sure that they can control as much of that experience as possible.
Super helpful. Obviously, there's just a lot of complexities in the middle. And you guys are attacking certain parts of that problem. Perhaps, again, dig deeper for us and just explain the complexity or a layer below, because I think there's just a lot of things that can go wrong. Pricing to maybe how the product is represented to, I'm assuming, post-sale service. I mean, there's just limitless number of things that can go wrong in that path and that complexity. So break this down further for me. Perhaps there is a mental model that and perhaps a few blocks that describe how you could potentially break this problem down. So any color on that would be super helpful.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. So I'll break it into why brands think about brand protection, or why do they come and talk with us or anyone else that's in this phase? What's happening in their mind, and that will actually help us figure out what's good. First thing is, they'll come in and they'll say, hey, I don't know how this unauthorized reseller got hold of my product. I don't know why they're selling my product on Amazon or Walmart or eBay or any other marketplace. How did they get the product? How are they able to sell it at a price where they're going to make any money? How did the arbitrage happen? Things like that. So there's a lot of questions on buy box loss and things. This is where they're starting to think. The second big one that comes to the brand's mind is, hey, someone dropped a price, and because of that price drop, Amazon matched that price, or Walmart matched that price, or a brick and mortar matched that price and created a channel conflict or a price war, which becomes very expensive. It's not something that the brands want. And it's always a problem. They're always saying, who dropped the price? Why did they drop the price? Who followed? Things like that. So there's a lot of discussion around that topic in brand protection. The third thing that happens is a lot of these resellers might create duplicate products, or duplicate ASIN, or duplicate UPC, or duplicate SKU number. They might actually bundle your product with something else that they were not supposed to. They might take an image, change an image. They might add something on the image that does not follow the guidelines that the brand has put together. So there's a lot of these infractions that create a very negative experience for the consumer and for the brand, and especially the marketers of the brand. It's important because they are saying, hey, I'm spending millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, building this brand and the brand equity and how it should be marketed and how it should be presented to the consumer. And now it's being, butchered in some cases on these online marketplaces. How can I control it better? They don't want that happening.
Are these problems restricted to 1P brands, or is it, 3P sellers have these issues as well?
So it's a lot of the issues are coming from the third-party sellers. For the third-party sellers that are trying to sell on these marketplaces, because if it's a first-party, let's just assume Walmart or Amazon or anyone is selling, they can control the experience a little bit better. a lot of it happens in the third party, but there's stuff happening in the 1P side as well. Another thing that I was about to talk about when you asked that question is a lot of these sellers are coming in, and this is a little bit of a bigger, more critical issue where counterfeit products start to come in. We have products where, for example, let's take a derivative. When you say the word derivative, the best thing that comes to mind is if you have a Gillette razor, and now you're creating razor blades for the main product. What Gillette wants is their razor blades to go with their razors so that they can maximize revenue, have a good experience for the consumer. There's a lot of derivatives now on marketplaces that say, hey, it's compatible to Gillette. It can work with this razor. It can work with this. It can work with the Philips Sonicare. It can work with this. There's a lot of this kind of stuff. Those are all brand protection issues. Those are all brand infringements that the brands are looking for. And then the last but not least, if you think about how much money these brands are spending on PPC and other forms of advertising, if the money doesn't go towards what they're trying to do, which is maximize revenue, and it goes towards, you've lost the buy box, you can't spend the money, it's going towards a reseller that's actually winning the buy box, it just is not the right thing. So the big question that I always ask the brands is, hey, you're spending millions, billions building the brand, and you're spending so much money advertising and marketing the brands, but you're spending little to nothing on protecting the brands. Why? Because it's coming out of a different budget? Is it something else? And I think that some of the bigger brands are now starting to think about this, saying, hey, you cannot just spend all your money on doing this. You have to protect the brand. Otherwise, your money is not being spent wisely.
Makes sense. So, just if I were to summarize the different blocks that make up this broad problem. So you mentioned unauthorized sellers or resellers, lack of pricing control as another one, duplicate products or product getting bundled in a way that the brand does not want to see, and then counterfeit products or even derivative products. I did have one question on the derivative products. Are there restrictions and rules and illegality around derivative products? I mean, I had a vacuum cleaner and the battery was dead, so I bought a derivative product. I think it was much cheaper. But are there laws or rules against doing that? I mean, what prevents a manufacturer in creating derivative products?
I think it all depends on licenses and agreements and things like that. So some products, for example, you can see there's the battery is an easier example, but in some products, it's a little bit more technical of how the product has to fit the head or to fit something else. If you haven't got the license from the main manufacturer to use the name for the derivative product, then you're not, allowed, you're not authorized. And that's what the manufacturers are saying. Hey, if you are for example, the Apple have the Apple cable, the lightning cable, you had to use the authorized chip in that lightning cable for it to work. So you had to go to Apple and say, I want to buy the chip. You're authorized. If you were not doing it, you were not authorized. Even though it was a derivative product, it was not the actual OEM product. And they also had a massive amount and they had to do a lot of cleanup. It's the same thing. There's a lot of products where they don't want, there's for many reasons. One is obviously profitability and maximizing revenue. The brand wants to maximize. The second part is they also want to make sure that the efficacy of the product is not is controlled and not compromised.
Makes sense. Manu, I think you've done a great job of, framing the problem. I assume no brand wants to take this lightly. But let's just assume that I'm a brand, I'm bought in, and I want to work with Manu or somebody to go address this problem. Can you frame the technical complexity around getting a handle on what the state of the problem is, let alone solving the problem?
Yeah, so I think that's where I think remember we have talked about a little bit that this is not a problem that can be solved by lawyers and legal teams and stuff. This is way bigger. So for a brand to have more control or even think about how they should go about solving the problem, the first thing they need is market visibility. They need to figure out what's going on in the market, get all this information, figure out where the infringements are happening, who's selling their product, at what price, what's going on. And scanning the market for that stuff is not easy because you'll get a lot of garbage, you'll get a lot of tools that can actually scan, but they really don't know how to get this information and put it together in a way that makes sense. So first part is just getting visibility of what's going on in the market. The second part is how do you go about connecting or talking with these resellers or these marketplaces of what these infringements are and removing them. So I can show you the visibility, but if you don't want to do anything or you can't do anything about it, then it's again back to square one. So that second part is very complicated. That's where technology as well as humans play a big role. And you need to be able to connect the dots, make sure you're doing it. You're following the procedures that the marketplaces have created. Every marketplace has their own nuances of how they want things to be filed and things like that. And it's a scale game. If you have one product and one marketplace, it's easy. A human can do it and manage it. But a lot of the brands that we talk with, they've got many brands. They've got hundreds, if not thousands of products in their catalog. They've got hundreds of resellers. That thing becomes way bigger than anything humans can do. So that's where the technology piece plays a good role. And then on top of that, once you actually do anything about this process and you start to remove these issues, how do you measure? How do you measure success? How do you connect it to the KPIs that matter most to these brands? Are they gaining more revenue? Are they increasing their buy box? Are they, the repeat offenders are coming down? Are they gaining share in their category? Those things are, again, a very heavy data play. Connecting all of this together of what's happening in the market, what do you do about it, and then how do you measure it, is where technology and tools like ours play a very important role. And I can challenge this anyone. No legal team, no one can actually do this alone. You have to have a very strong tech component to it, plus a human component to get this thing done in the right way. And as we talked about, Srinath, the level of infringements or the types of infringements are so diverse, from, as we talked about, duplications to derivatives to unauthorized resellers to pricing, that each one of them requires a different set of technology to actually capture and go through the process.
And I like the frame, by the way, which is, get market visibility so you can actually understand what your problem is. And then you've got a set of things you've got to take care of the problem. That's probably where the legal teams perhaps have a role to play. And then the measurement aspect of it. A question I have is, I sit here and think every brand should be all over this all the time. Do you find that brands don't recognize or care about this problem? Or is there another dynamic at play because of which there potentially is inaction on behalf of the brands?
I think I'll characterize that in maybe a couple of buckets. There are some brands that are very active. They understand this problem. They want to tackle it. They put money behind it. They've even created SWAT teams within their entire organizations to solve this problem at scale. And not just a US problem, but this is a global problem. So they're actually very active and they try to do this. There is a second set of brands that what I would say is this problem is being solved by a compliance manager in a small team somewhere that only is trying to do this part of the problem. So the problem is this big, but only, let's say, 10% of the problem is being solved by someone out there. They've given them a small budget and said, hey, you're the brand protection guy, go solve this problem. And, they can only do what they can do. because all the different teams are not talking to each other. The hands are not like connected. The dots are not connected to be able to tell the bigger picture. And then there's the third set of brands that know the problem, don't know how to solve it. They have too many other things going on. Their distribution is so open that they've created this problem on their own, don't care. Right now it's buried under the 10 different projects that they already have. And they're starting to realize that, hey, I can have this leaky bucket. If I don't solve it, I can just keep putting water up there and filling it up. At the end of the day, it's going to disappear.
Makes sense. Can you share with us, Manu, like a specific example where you work with a client and, there's been a material kind of change when it comes to brand protection? Just walk us through, ideally some stats, some specific scenarios. That'd be fantastic.
So I think it'd be good just for the audience, if anyone wants, we have all of our case studies on our website. We don't use the names of the brands because we, just to protect their identity and our agreements and stuff. But we have a lot of use cases which focus on price control. We have a lot of use cases that focus on improvement in buy box. We have a lot of use cases where the brands actually want to know where the product is coming from. How did it leak? What were the sources of distribution? Because they want to solve the problem at the supply chain level. They want to solve the problem at the distribution level and stop it. We have a lot of case studies on how they were losing a lot of sales, and now that lost sales bucket is going down, and they're actually gaining more share in their 1P account. So there's a ton of this is not hey, trust me, set it, forget it, and things would happen. This is a very, as you said, it's a data intensive process. You have to measure, you have to monitor. You have to be able to tell be able to record the ROI. But the best part is we know that there is money out there and the brands know themselves. And if they can start to see some of the traction, I think that's where some of our best case studies come from, where we start to see traction. The brands that are serious about it start to make some progress, and then they'll see that this is, once they control the market well, as you said, the controlled experience, the consumers are going to be benefiting, the retailers in the middle are going to be benefiting, and the brand is not.
By the way, why the name I2O Retail, by the way? I should have asked you this earlier, but I'm curious.
So I2O stands for inputs to outputs. It's in essence basically saying, if you do the things right, do all of the work that we're doing on brand protection, the output is that you have a controlled environment and you have a better revenue. And we use that same inputs to outputs philosophy in all of our tools, whether it's market visibility tools, whether it's brand protection tools, or revenue acceleration tools. So we have a broader set of tools that we build for the brands.
Manu, role of AI in any of this? Any perspective on that?
Yeah, so there's the BS on AI, and then there is the reality on AI. We think of AI as we've kind of humanized AI. We are using AI or machine learning or algorithms or different models in solving these problems in the back end, making a fancy widget and to answer some questions. That's not, we don't think that is the application of the use case for us. For us, it's more of can we actually use AI in the back end that actually helps solve the problems or help us predict certain things that we can predict and given the data set. And all of those things drive our weekly business reviews, our monthly business reviews with our clients. So we call it, I call it humanizing AI. I call it maybe dumbifying AI or using AI for what it meant to be. We are not in the business of just saying, hey, just slapping the word AI on everything and calling it a sexy widget, which a lot of people do. Just to be out.
True, totally. I mean, I think we share a similar perspective in the sense that We see a lot of use for AI kind of in internal assistance with a lot of different aspects of the business, but certainly exposing AI outputs and putting that in front of the clients without any kind of verification in between, we also are pretty far from that. So,
like for example, we have one of our products is a content tracking where things are changing and stuff like that. So we have a very extensive product on content tracking. Within that content tracking, how images are changing, we're using AI for that. We're just not telling we're putting the story out there, but there's an AI tool that's helping us figure out whether this image was same as the other and what happened, when did the change happen. So that's kind of like our way of, as you said, you guys are using it for your internal stuff. We're using it for the internal tools as well and helping out our customers.
Any closing comments or words of wisdom for brands that we have not already talked about, Manu?
I think there's a couple of things. One, I think any brand, they should be using some kind of market visibility tools to figure out what's going on in their market. They should start to think about brand protection as a serious threat to their business now or in the future. And I think they should come talk with us, come talk with someone else who's working on brand protection and get an idea of what it is. And maybe there's some misconceptions that can be removed. And in my mind, and not just I'm selling the concept of brand protection, I think brand protection is table stakes. They should be thinking if they have a content team that creates content, if they have a team that does, they should be thinking, I should have a brand protection team that does the basic blocking and tagging and gets me, controls my brand experience, because I'm spending so much money on other things. I should spend at least a portion of my budget on this as well. So I think it's important for brands to realize that this is not a flavor of the day. This is something to stay. And the reason I say that is there's more marketplaces coming. There's more data coming. There's more resellers coming on the platform. Amazon's adding, Walmart's adding. There's a lot of Chinese marketplaces that are adding more and more resellers on there. So this problem is not going away. This problem is just going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. And if the brand wants to control their destiny, they need to do brand protection.
Makes total sense. And I think there's enough complexity here. I mean, I think we all know just dealing with their own data from different marketplaces in itself is not simple. And here you're talking about a problem where you've got to track your brand presence across lots and lots of geographies, marketplaces, different types of actors, different types of problems. So there's enough complexity here. And, for anyone that's listening, if you're a brand that is thinking about this problem, wants to do something about the problem, certainly reach out to Manu and team, and their website is itooretail.com. Manu, thank you for joining. This has been super informative, certainly for me, and appreciate you taking the time, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks a lot, Srinath.